Are you sick of cuffing up for lengthened biased cross-body lateral raises? Have you spent the past 3 to 30 years main-gaining your way into muscular mediocrity? Do you find yourself reciting the opening soliloquy from Richard III every time you consider your poor bicep insertions? If you identify with at least 1/3 of these statements, then I invite you to accompany me on a seance to commune with one of the girthiest pillars in strength sports history. Today we'll be channeling the spirit of Doug Hepburn, a mass monster who combined the competitive pedigree of Shane Hammond with the guttural gumption of Andrew Richard. Like any child destined to become country strong, Hepburn was born cross-eyed, with a club right foot. That's the kind of auspicious arrival that's one retrograde planet away from a life spent announcing yourself as the messiah of stray cats behind a burning gas station. Instead, Hepburn would begin a vigorous love affair with lifting at the Vancouver YMCA. Like any productive dalliance, it led to him dropping out of high school, a sure pathway to success for an INFP. Hepburn's foot left him ineligible for service in the Second World War, but wouldn't stop him from squatting 800 pounds, wrestling professionally, and outdoing your uncle at every barbecue with his unsolicited bouts of property damage thinly veiled as feats of strength. When Hepburn wasn't getting into trouble, ripping up license plates and crushing cans of oil barehandedly, he demonstrated his strength in formal competitions, setting a Canadian record of 300 pounds in the extinct clean and press as a baby-faced 22-year-old. 6 years later, he'd take gold in the World Weightlifting Championships. By that time, Doug had accrued 296 pounds of contractile tissue on his 5'8" frame, a statistic I find both disheartening and encouraging. I'm Hepburn's height, and my insides feel like an overcooked bowl of oats every time my weight creeps over 220. This guy didn't even have the modern hard gainer cheat codes like MK677 and prescription cannabis. Hepburn put on the weight raw, no Nutella wraps or Oreo sleeves, just a close grip on the cookie jar and double overhand sets of roast beef. He boasted a 57.5-inch chest, a 32.5-inch thigh, a 15 3/4-inch forearm, and 22-inch guns measured on, in his words, anybody's tape. Those are the kind of proportions that earn you death stares while you crab walk down an airplane aisle. If any of you pencil necks are noting the absence of a waist measurement, why don't you find the chutzpah and a time machine to try asking him? Better yet, try lassoing this behemoth with a tape measure. I've got a pet theory that Pixar animators used Hepburn as a model for Mr. Incredible. Just look at that cupped chin and slick hairline featured on his Wikipedia bio. In a 1954 interview with strength historian Ray Beck, Hepburn advocated an intuitive eating style that would give Stephanie Buttermore flashbacks to her 2019 diet. I adhere to no set schedule, he told Beck. I eat when I feel like it. He contradicts this claim in the same breath, going on to state that a competitive heavyweight must force-feed himself to get and maintain his needed body weight. Forced food intake is not a healthy thing, but there is no moderation for a competing man. Hepburn championed the power belly as a buttress for heavy pressing and squatting. Citing Paul Anderson's squat-like build as the ideal strongman physique, Hepburn claimed the perfect height for an athlete was 5'10", a more forgiving standard than modern Tinder bios. I like to picture a personals ad in the back of a 50s-era issue of Iron Man magazine seeking a man with a 6-plate squat, a 60-inch chest, and a 6-egg breakfast habit. Complications from childhood surgeries limited Hepburn's right ankle mobility, preventing him from optimizing depth on the catch of his cleans. Beck wrote that he was a weightlifter by public pressure and not by personal choice, favoring feats of minimal skill and maximal strength. Hepburn touted himself as the first man to bench 400, 450, 500, and 550 pounds, with a lifetime best of 580. He squatted and deadlifted 800, pressed 450 out of the rack, and set records in a number of other odd lifts that Atlas Shrugged and Kyriakos Grizzly are keeping from going extinct. His lifetime of hefting would earn him a place in the Canadian Olympic Hall of Fame. By 1955, depression and alcoholism drove Hepburn to take a step back from international competition. He signed with Toronto wrestling promoter Frank Tunney, fulfilling 2 years of a 5-year contract. Hepburn went on to open a gym furnished with equipment built by his own meaty mitts. He founded a sports nutrition line and preempted Andrew Huberman's evangelism of light exposure, proclaiming that sunbathing was instrumental to recovery. Despite a misguided swerve into vegetarianism, Hepburn was still squatting 600 for giggles well into his 50s. He was as multifaceted as Jason Blaha, a self-confessed encyclopedia reader and bathroom philosopher who was apt to lapse into unsolicited recitations of poetry. He wrote prolifically and proudly flouted a brassy set of pipes, recording an original and eponymous Christmas ditty. Hepburn would die of a perforated ulcer at the age of 74, leaving behind a trove of interviews and original essays. Like Jim Wendler, Swede Burns, and countless others, Hepburn's training programs minted his legacy. The Hepburn Method consists of 2 separate workouts performed on consecutive days twice per week. Lifters squat and bench on the first and third days, and deadlift and press on days 2 and 4. Every lift follows the same double progression. 8 sets of 2 to 3 reps starting at 85%, followed by 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps at 65%. Lifters add 1 rep to both ranges each time the workout is repeated. In this way, the athlete proceeds from 8 sets of 2 and 3 sets of 6 to 8 sets of 3 and 3 sets of 8 over the course of 4 weeks. The lifter then adds 10 pounds to the bar and starts over with sets of 2. My only complaint with this program is that the uneven set numbers aggravate my OCD, but I can remedy that by mooching some clonazepam off my fiancée. The Hepburn Method is a fun, efficient, and productive way to train, regardless of your access to benzodiazepines. I've run several cycles of the program with the addition of pull-ups, barbell rows, and about 1 million sets of weighted cunnilingus utilizing the neck harness. Those clonazepams weren't being offered for free. I credit Steve Shaw of Muscle and Brawn for introducing Hepburn to my generation, sparing untold numbers of broccoli-haired SARMs goblins from spinning their wheels with kneeling cross-body pull-downs on the free motion machine. Hepburn eschewed form fetishists and posing trunks fetishists in a pure-hearted pursuit of brute strength. Regardless of whether or not his programming tickles your fancy, consider dedicating your next rep PR to this tortured artist who sculpted himself a broad and bulbous bod. If you'd like to learn more about Hepburn, I'd recommend Tom Thurston's biography Strongman, The Doug Hepburn Story, and legendary strength blog The Tight Slacks of Death So Ban. In my next video, I'll be covering Arthur Saxon, the inventor of the bent press. Throw your topic requests for future strength stories below. This channel won't just be biographical. I plan to delve into the lore behind lifts and modern strongman events like the Husafelt Stones. Thanks for watching. In the words of Miyamoto Musashi, seek nothing outside yourself, except for a like, a subscribe, and a comment.